Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period, prefaced by a review of far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The NAP is a daily show whenever the House sits, so please join us 45 minutes prior to question period, or until the government decides to stop showing up at the lower house, like through prorogation or something like that. Not that they haven't done that before. You know, when things get a little hot under the collar, as they seem to be getting over the last couple of days, we are streaming on 3 platforms: Rumble, X, and CommieTube. So please give us a like, thumbs up, follow, and share, and subscribe. And most of all, the chat is up, so please feel free to ask anything. And please leave us some comments. I go through all of them. I really appreciate anyone who's tuned in, anyone that's watching the video after it's been posted after the stream. And we will get right into our first panel. Let's do our quick scene change here. Anytime. All right. Let's make sure that our audio is good. Standing, not like yesterday with a bunch of echoing all the way through it. All right, so we are waiting for the House to sit. Now, as usual, we have been covering the ostrich farm every single day we've been doing the show on the progress. And yes, the mess just keeps getting worse. I wanted to bring you straight to Creighton's Right with David on his page. His latest thumbnail here pretty well says it all. What's been happening is that they've had to observe the flock from the surrounding highlands through telescopes because there's a ban on flying any drones over the area to see what these miscreants have been doing with the ostriches. And just by visual counts, people have been saying that they're probably down about 100 birds. And now, right here on David Creighton's thumbnail, it looks like they have been disposing of birds. And the Supreme Court did not tell them to go ahead and do this, right? So the CFIA, once again, is acting like an unaccountable entity to itself. Just the kind of uncontrollable bureaucracy that you would expect to find in a communist country. So their live stream at Universal Ostrich Farm keeps going down, and we keep getting the single picture, but we keep losing a connection. You can see right here, all this blue fencing, they brought this in. So there's been some estimates on how much this is costing the taxpayer now daily. Now remember, you've got a platoon of RCMP out there, and then you've got the CFIA, then you've got all the stuff that they're renting and all this time operating there, and it's, what is it, 50 grand a day, 100 grand a day, who knows? But why, right? And of course, there was a letter sent by Scott Anderson, the MP for Vernon Lake Country, Monaspy. A lot of different writings in Canada. Should learn to pronounce them all. And he's waiting for an answer. And that's the power of the members of Parliament, right? If a member of Parliament is contacting you and you are another government agency, you are required to give a written response. So it'll be interesting to see what he gets. And one of the other things that we've been tracking as well is the signatures on the Do Not Introduce Digital ID that have been gathering in the UK, all of which, of course, in the UK, as it falls further and further into authoritarian rule. Now some of the local councils in the area, knowing that their political opponents, the Reform Party, are poised to gain a lot of the seats, what do they do in those areas? They're canceling the elections, just like communists do. Remember, now whatever's happening in the UK is going to happen in Canada. Right? Everything that they're doing in the UK, that they're doing in Australia, they're bringing it here as well. The digital ID, the gun confiscation, the loss of property rights, loss of freedom, 15-minute cities, forced EVs. They all did the same forced COVID-19 vaccination ploy. And after all the deaths and injuries, we still don't seem to have anybody accountable, right? We even had the failed vaccine injury support program have a massive failure over the summer to the point where the public health had to take it over. Haven't heard a thing yet on this, right? It's not like a lot of people didn't finish their lives prematurely because of taking this jab. And yet, people are walking free. Just another sign of our failing society. I always like to show this digital ID thing at the beginning because that's what's coming to Canada. That's what the Liberals want. That's the only way they can hold on to power. Now, here we have a post by Ryan Garrettson. Now, over the Thanksgiving, our POS Prime Minister decided to repost some old pictures of being with the troops, showing that he cares for the troops. You not understand how morale killing such stupidity like this is. It's this false bravado, this stolen valor, basically. It's tantamount to stolen valor. Here you are saying you're supporting the troops and hanging out with them when it's an outright freaking lie, right? The image intimates that, but you don't make that clear. Such a goof. And in Canada, the word goof is not an endearment. Well, Darcy DeCalou was responding to something on one of the posts that we were dealing with, and he mentions here, I had a small, successful business. Labor was unionized. End of story. Corrupt laws to protect corrupt unions exist. I would never, ever start a business in commie Canada ever again. I put this story up because these are all stories from people in Canada whose lives and businesses have been destroyed by the liberal economy, by liberal legislation, by liberal needs to control everything and insert themselves into everything. They do. They meddle in everything, usually with two purposes. One of them is to gain control, and the other one is to profit for themselves. Proven over and over and over again every time they are in power. Now, I'm not saying the Conservatives don't do the same thing, but the only difference between the Conservatives in the past and the Liberals when they've held power is that the Conservatives knew well enough that if anyone was going to be performing any kind of grift, they made it so deep and so buried it would be almost near impossible to find, because most often they knew that eventually the truth always gets out. Whereas the Liberals don't care. Their entire modus operandi is to have as many ethics breaches, as many rule breakings every single day so that you cannot keep up. Meanwhile, they move the levers of legislation in the wrong directions, breaking the entire system so that everything breaks, everything is happening all at the same time, nobody can keep up on anything, and this is how they do it. It is control chaos. And the final thing at the end is that there is no more chaos because there's no more freedom and only one government centralized and only one rule and only one God. Actually, that you won't even be allowed to have a God. Your God will be government, because that's how these Marxists operate. Our next post here is from Antonio Tweets. Canada is, well, it seems Canada's foxtrotted if we don't fix this fast. Let's listen to this. Let me bring up the audio.
Canadians should be furious right now. Share this far and wide. Trudeau and Mark Carney have cost Canadians over $660 billion in suspended or canceled energy projects since 2015. This is 100,000 jobs or more. This is government or revenue, and this is all because of their war on oil and LNG sectors. Here's the list. Trade works when you produce and sell the things you do best and you trade for the rest. Canada is rich in oil, LNG, agriculture, potash, lumber, critical minerals, seafood, and yes, even Hawkins cheesies. But we trade for things we don't produce, like pineapples, orange juice, coffee, and computer chips. Yet Trudeau and Carney declared war on our biggest advantage, our energy. Canada has the third largest oil reserves in the world, the second or third largest LNG reserves. And how? How did they do it? The carbon tax, a direct hit on energy, farmers, truckers, and every Canadian who buys groceries or heats their home. Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines Act, the Just Transition designed to kill 600,000 oil and gas jobs and replace them with what? Retail from American-owned Walmart and McDonald's. The hypocrisy of Trudeau and Carney on emissions. They claim Canada needs to cut emissions, but here's what they ignore. India and China burn 86% of the world's coal. Canada's #1 export to China is coal. And their emissions don't just stay there, they move. I'll show you a video from NASA that proves how carbon moves from west to east on the eastern jet stream. This means the pollution from India and China literally carries over to Canada. Yet Trudeau and Carney punish our industries with taxes and regulations while letting the biggest polluters off the hook. Guess what? We could have sold our LNG to China and India, half the emissions of coal. This attack on energy, Mark Carney literally wrote a book about it. He's been Trudeau's economic advisor since August 2020. Trudeau hasn't been shy about saying this economic pain is intentional. But now they admit they were all wrong. Suddenly they see a need for pipelines. They say we don't need a carbon tax, except Carney just wants to shift it to bigger industries. Canada is weaker because of Trudeau and Carney, and now we're vulnerable to an economic threat from the US president. The solution? Elect a government that actually understands trade. Develop and sell our resources to create high-paying jobs. Get rid of the anti-pipeline C-69 and ensure Canada is never this weak again. Pierre Poilievre is the only leader who will make Canada competitive again, who will strengthen our jobs, our industries, and listen, this election will be the most important in our country's history. Don't be fooled. Share this far and wide and vote Conservative.
Yes, there's a lot of things that Canadian citizens are not aware of when they are voting. And when you try to engage somebody on the left on these things, they just, one of the first things they say is that all politicians are the same. The amount of political lack of knowledge that Canadians have in their own country will lead them to becoming the canceled carbon that they are. Let's see if we can get this up here before I do this. All right. Greg Wycliffe, who is working on a documentary here in Canada on loss of freedom, is making a post here. Belgian nationalist D. van Langenhoven was charged with jail time and a 10-year ban from politics for posting memes in a group chat. Yeah. So, again, this is just to demonstrate the far left crazy cultural Marxism that has gripped Europe, that is gripping everywhere in the West. And this cultural Marxism is very well entrenched here in Canada. It will lead to the same kind of stupidity like this, right? It starts off with banning certain things and banning that and hurt feelings. And next thing you know, you can't post a meme because you'll be banned from running for office for 10 years. Now, we've seen similar things almost happening here in Canada because certain groups of the government here, like along the elections, Canada, have been going after people for doing normal things like posting a sign on their property during an election and then being charged with election interference. Or like when they went after Ezra Levant for publishing a book during the previous election, not the last one, the previous election. Meanwhile, there were 11 other books that were political books published, but they were all pro-liberal. His wasn't. Somehow, he was the only one charged for election interference. No problem, he lost that case, but he learned from that. And then he knew that all he needed to do was register himself properly within the system, so that if they tried to go after him again next election while he was publishing a book like he did last election, they couldn't. They couldn't because now he was actually following these extra rules that they imposed. Now, to be sure, they'll probably change those rules again because they realize that, we're not catching Conservatives with this, and it's hurting our way of controlling society. So when they do these kind of things, banning a politician because they're on a messaging board or it's just a matter. This is how the Marxists work. They basically make the opposition illegal. They bring in a bunch of rules and then they make you break them and then they throw you in jail. Just like what they're doing with all the bills that they're trying to pass right now. Next post here by Michelle La. Her handle is Michelle La 81, so I'm assuming she was born in 81. Liberals have tabled 12 new bills, not one of them about making life more affordable for Canadians. They're all about more government control. Elbows up. Yeah. So, I may have posted this post before on one of the previous broadcasts, but what I did use it for was for a video. I was in a video that I've actually put together. And it brought to mind exactly why all these bills are actually being put forth, right? I published a video a couple weeks ago called Chaos Agent, where you can see it's a natural progression from the KGB's Marxist influence in the West and whatever those breeding systems that were in place, having them hijacked by the cultural Marxists for their own purposes. So the 35 rules that were established by the Stalinists, goals, not rules, goals, in order to achieve communism within a society. So let's just give that a quick review from my own video. And why is that page not working? It's working just fine. Just fine. I had this queued up. Of course, I had it queued up, and now it's not queued up anymore. Fix this.
Things are eroding our moral fabric. And that's exactly what those who want to fundamentally change us want. If you look at the congressional record from January the 10th, 1963, Congressman Herlong of Florida read into the congressional record the 45 goals of communism in America. And they included all of those things. Gaining control of the schools and the teacher union so you can indoctrinate the kids, gaining control of the media and Hollywood so you change the culture of America, making sexual perversion normal, natural, and healthy, denigrating the role of the family, elevating the role of government. It's all in there. We need to understand that we're under attack and we have to fight back.
Who do you think is orchestrating all of this?
There have been people who have been opposed to the American way and American values since the very beginning. The Europeans thought that we were crazy. They said, you can't run a nation on the will of the people. You have to have a monarch. You have to have a ruler. But in today's world, we have to contend with the factions that still believe that socialism and communism is a better way of life. You give control of your life over to others who will guarantee that they will take care of you from the cradle to the grave.
Well, let's move on to the next panel. The video is up. You can go and watch the rest of those 20 rules that I have adopted to the woke mind virus as it infiltrates Western society. Right, here's a post by Mario Zelaya. The biggest threats to peace in Canada: weak laws, activists, judges, liberalism. This is not compassion, this is ridiculous. And of course, here's a post of the National Post newspaper. Cocaine trafficking sentence cut in half for Jamaican facing deportation from Canada. The judge said the man experienced systemic and personal discrimination as a black man, and that has certainly played a role in his criminality. Oh. Two-tier justice system is just another symptom of a collapsing society being slowly strangled by cultural Marxism to bring about authoritarian rule. Next panel, please. Oh, Mario for the North has something for us. It's funny, because I go ahead and I load all these panels ahead of time, and then, of course, I go back through and load them all up again. All right, here's, yes, the Stellantis story that has broken out over the past week, which was never addressed yesterday in question period, of course. And just to give you an update on what happened, we've given them $15 billion, and, well, of course, the opposition wants to see the contracts. And the Liberals didn't want to produce contracts. So they went to committee, and the committee said, we're going to vote to see the contracts. And the Liberals said, well, we're going to put in an amendment that we can redact the contracts. And then, of course, that amendment didn't pass, and the vote passed for them to provide the contracts. And the last time we had something like this, the Liberals had to provide paperwork, was during the SDTC scam, over 5,000 pages that the Liberals refused to provide. In fact, they did provide them, but they were also heavily redacted. You couldn't read them. So the Speaker of the House said, well, I'm sorry, but you need to provide unredacted copies or else you cannot continue doing any work in the lower house as the sitting government. And that is why the Liberals didn't get anything accomplished from June 2024 until the last election, unless they had the other parties agreeing to put whatever legislation or amendments through that they needed at the time. But other than that, the government couldn't do any business in the House whatsoever. We may be headed towards the same thing here. Now, apparently, they said they're going to release the contracts. Of course, our ministers in the House were lying about it, right? They said, no, we're going to provide you the contracts. Of course, leaving out the fact that they tried to not provide the contracts. So now we're just waiting for them to provide the contracts to prove that they actually had good contracts that were supposed to protect the jobs. It was 13 billion, not 15 billion. Oh, you kind of lose track after a couple of billion. I mean, really. Once the money tree starts printing, how much more can you really keep track? The reality is, folks, the car industry in Canada is toast. It's not coming back. And in relation to this, I had something queued up.
Deliver that. We just announced.
Mr. Speaker, of course, what Stellantis announced for the Brampton plant last week was completely unacceptable. And Stellantis has made solemn commitments to this government and to their workers, and they need to honor their commitments. And that's why we will hold them to account. While my colleagues are just right now talking, we already know that in committee we said that we would agree to the protection of documents. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, let me be extremely clear. We will fight for these jobs because Canadian auto workers are the best auto workers in the world. Mr. Speaker, when this government negotiates contracts, they're good ones. And Mr. Speaker, let me be extremely clear. The decision by Stellantis to move its production from the Brampton plant is completely unacceptable. And Mr. Speaker, the decision by Stellantis is not only completely unacceptable, but we'll make sure to hold them to account. Speaker, I know my colleague is very interested in this issue, which is normal, and of course, this is my #1 priority right now. But
Mr. Speaker, we understand that our Conservative colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't like to work with Premier Ford. Mr. Speaker, just because our colleague asserts with great indignation a series of conspiracy theories does not make them true. Mr. Speaker, we understand that our Conservative colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't like to work with Premier Ford.
The Prime Minister's broken promises are costing Canadians. The Prime Minister said he would lower grocery costs.
Yes, just an example there of you saw all the times they were asked a direct question. Were the jobs protected? Were they guaranteed in the contract? They avoided answering that every single time. Every single time. So that tells me that it's not in the contract. And it also tells me that even though they have been ordered to provide the contracts, there is going to be some foxtrottery going on before they provide it. Now, it's always good to remind people how much of a failure this green scam technology is. Moose on a loose. he has a good chart that he keeps track of all these failures, especially since Carney has come in. All these massive expenditures, billions that we've given out to industry, only to be, scammed. They shut down the business, or they just move out, take the money and run, hire just a fraction of the employees. The whole thing is a scam. Just in a conversation on X before coming onto the show, again, somebody who teaches climate science in school, saying climate change is real, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, but, over the past 10,000 years, there was warmer periods geologically recorded, which kind of breaks your entire climate change scam. And the climate models don't include space weather, and they don't address the fact that the data points are fraudulent because their climate models use heat data from heat sink areas in urban areas and then call it, oh, look, it's extra hot there. And by ignoring space weather, the fact that when the sun goes cold, the Earth turns into an ice ball. And geologically, the Earth has been in ice ages longer than it has been thawed. So the fact that they're all going crazy nuts about climate change when we should be worried about freezing to death. Because for the majority of the time, this planet is warm. I mean, it is cold. It's frozen. It has no bloody life on it. The fact that it is warm, we have life. You want it warmer so you can have more life, but no, because authoritarians, they hate that lately. They need control. They can't have you having your own freedom, which is why they need to replace your existing vehicle technology with something that they know is not going to work. Here we have 2 major vehicle battery supply chains projects fall through in Bécancour, Quebec. Yes, global slowdown in EV battery industry. Global slowdown because it's a scam. These bloody things. First off, they're no good for us in Canada, right? It gets too bloody cold here to operate effectively in the cold. And people saying, oh, don't idle your car. Screw you. When it's minus 30 outside, I'm going to idle. I'm outside, I'm in the car, I'm idling, I'm staying warm. That's a Canadian thing because it's bloody cold, right? And then how are you supposed to warm up a car in winter that's on a battery, right? You're using the juice from your battery to what? To heat up a coil? An inefficient coil that's going to have air pushed past it in order to heat up the interior of the car? Or maybe it'll just be heat elements in the seat just to warm you and not the actual ambient temperature, right? It's not efficient. It is not efficient technology using the existent minerals, toxic materials that they are making this out of, that they have no disposal method for. But it's not just the other economic failure that's happening in Canada. Here we have a wasted Canadian posting. Here we have another 575 jobs lost in Canada. A TD Center in Dieppe, New Brunswick, closed down, taking his jobs. In New Brunswick, which apparently was a very big elbows up Liberal voting crowd. So good on you for voting for Liberals, because as the economy continues to tank under their kleptocracy, well, the jobs will continue to go. Like they said, a collapse doesn't happen slowly, right? It's a bit slow at first, and then suddenly everything crashes at the same time. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Business after business is closing down in Canada. Closing down and moving, or just closing down. And people don't want to start businesses in Canada because the legislation is horrible. You're taxed to death. It makes it too hard to start a business. And when you finally do make a profit, well, the government takes in and takes it all away. And then you never know when they're going to bring in some new fees or make things just far too expensive for you to operate your business. And then they bring in these additional human resources rules that are legislated to the point where you have to accept crazy Marxists within your company. I don't think so. Yeah, I wouldn't want to start a business in Canada. Not even a lemonade stand. There's a post by Blazing Catfer that I put up because it's another Liberal failure. General Motors ending bright drop EV production in Ingersoll. And that's right, General Motors is ending production of its bright drop electric delivery van in Ingersoll, Ontario, in the latest blow to the province's automotive sector. The company says the decision is related to low demand for a model and isn't moving production elsewhere. Right. Why would you want to drive around an electric van that is now probably more expensive to charge than if you had to put gas in it, operate a regular van? And that's the biggest problem right now as well, is that they made electricity so expensive that EV use is going to be verboten. It's just not going to be affordable. But that's a legacy for liberals, right? In 10 years, they've managed to make everything unaffordable. That was their plan. They did that on purpose. Let's move on to our next panel. Ah, yes, Vesper Digital. Vesper has been around. He was instrumental in helping Northern Perspective do some changes to their show initially, especially when they were getting ready to move from the puppets on screen over to live persons. And yes, their show's been doing rather well. And of course, they had that interview with Pierre Polyev over the Easter week when Parliament was out. That has led to the far left media losing their freaking minds over him, basically telling the truth about the RCMP and their inability to actually do their job because their political masters are intervening in their administration. Oh, here's Vesper saying, this is what happens when you call out ECOS polling for getting $1.4 million from the Liberal government in the last 2 years. Yeah, polling agencies, totally not biased. And if you looked at some of the polls recently, ECOS suddenly had the Liberals, like 10, 12% higher than the Conservatives, when all the other polls are showing the exact opposite trend happening. Imagine that, right? And of course, this government we have, they are just sending money everywhere. Overseas, over to Ukraine, there's money flowing out, and of course, what are they planning on doing? They're probably going to cancel old age security, right? But you think they'll cancel the billions of dollars they're sending over to Ukraine, or the hundreds of millions they're sending over to Africa to help with climate change, whatever? I mean, this is insane, absolutely insane. Canada, you're being robbed blind by these miscreants. But for his chance, here goes. He gets blocked by them. These people, so automatically, they're far left, right? If they're blocking you, they're probably left. And because, if you were unbiased, why would you care if somebody said that? Oh no, yeah, of course, just like other NGOs. Yes, we take the money, everything's out in the open. No, can't have that out in the open that you're taking the money, I guess. Not to worry. There's probably more people following Vesper Digital than there are ECOS polling at this point. Now we have a posting here from Table Salt. He goes, whoa, Carney lied about moving his company to the USA. States that his advisors don't want him talking about ethics and transparency. Now this is a post back from 13th of April. And there was a reason why I put this up.
Bill Curry from the Globe and Mail. On the issue of ethics and transparency, Canada's ethics laws have been widely criticized as inadequate, particularly as a check on the Prime Minister's office and his powers. On access to information, the system is bogged down, excessive redactions, it's viewed as not working. Yet your platform is essentially silent on those two issues. So what commitments are you prepared to make to improve Canada's ethics regime and access to information system?
I think, Bill, you asked an important question. Yes, it's not in the platform. It's in my head. And so I will now, against the advice of my advisors, let it out of my head, which is, I do think looking at access to information is quite important. The speed with which the information is provided, and as you say, the redactions that I think, I'm happy to commit to having a review of that, because I do find that, at least as an outsider, I've been an outsider until now, and as a consumer of it, that I sometimes can't always follow the process, if you will. So an objective review of that would serve Canadians well, regardless of the result of the election.
So it's in his head. Yeah. And that's where it remained, apparently, for the next 6 months, in his head. because he didn't realize that the rules are actually in the Green Book and in legislation. Now, I had this queued up. Because
in recent days, we've been meeting with lots of business leaders and CEOs. For the most part, we don't know who those people are. Can you tell us who those people are? And will you commit that your office share who you meet with at a business level?
Yeah, I think we share broad. It's a good question. Actually, don't know what we share, to be honest. I mean, I was asking.
Yes, just like any other job that you go to in the government, there's usually a list of duties, a list of responsibilities, what your job entitles, right? And all the associating legislation and rules. We had it in the military. I'm sure you have it in the RCMP. I'm sure you have it in every other government department. And I'm damn sure, and I know, because I've been to the parts on your website that actually show where these rules are. But 6 months later, you can't be bothered. All right, let's move on to the next panel. 6 months later, you still can't be bothered to learn what the rules are. Typical liberal. Let's just keep breaking the rules until I'm caught, and then after I'm caught, I'll say I'm sorry and keep breaking the rules until I lose my job. Here's a post by Tamara Litch, and she's given us an update on her house arrest. Yesterday was my first meeting with my new probation officer. She seemed fair and efficient. We simply reviewed the conditions set out by the judge for my house arrest. I was hoping to be able to drop off and pick up my grandsons from school, but apparently that request will have to go to a judge under a variation application, so we'll just leave everything as is for now. Next week I'm heading back in for an interview for her to assess the level of risk I pose to reoffend. It sounds like it'll basically be a questionnaire to assess my mental state and any dangers I may pose to society. Oh my gosh, if she was a black Jamaican, she'd definitely get half her time off, right? She informed me of the consequences should I breach these conditions, and I am not to leave the house, even for the approved necessities of life, without contacting her to let her know where I'll be and for how long. She will then provide a letter stating I have been granted permission to be out in society. I am to have my papers on my person at all times and ready to produce should I be pulled over or seen by law enforcement out and about. She was kind enough to print me off a letter yesterday before I left so I could stop at the optometrist and dentist offices on my way home. My official date of release is January 21st, 2027, 1,799 days after my initial arrest. Following the law for peacefully protesting. Believe it? Two-tier Justice Society. Walking, breathing reminder of the collapse of our society. From the Real Andy Show. Andy Lee posts, it's not as if your affiliates rear out money donated from taxpayers earmarked for international aid towards voting campaigns for progressives or anything like that. I'm sure we can all agree that would appear to be rather shady. How many ridings did they brag about winning again? Well, let's see. Tucked into the Islamic Relief Canada's 2024 donees is a gift of $458,000 to the Canadian Muslim Vote, a nonprofit that's supposed to be nonpartisan, which is run by NDP donor Umair Ashraf. should prepare that name. Islamic Relief then received a grant of $40 million in 2025 right before the election. Interesting, Andy, that all this taxpayer money is flowing out of the coffers to help just before the election. Imagine that. Right? That's because the far left doesn't care about the rules. They only care about power. How they get there, they don't care. They will break all the rules because they have no ethics, they have no values, they have no morals. Okay, we are getting close to quarter after the hour. We're still having statements by the members, and most of the members have not filed in yet. On the same vein of information, Holly Doan here, Special Representative on Combating Islamophobia, Amira El-Ghabi, used her office to advocate for federal employees speaking out on Palestine issues and lobbied against B'nai B'rith Canada. Censored documents were disclosed through access to information. So here we are. We have somebody else. It's the old Red-Green Alliance, the green being the Muslims, who don't care about the rules as long as they achieve authoritarian power, and in this case here, illegally using their position within government to influence politics, which for them on the left, they don't care, right? That's why you have teachers now in school teaching their politics to children. This didn't happen when I went to school. I didn't even know what the politics were of my high school teachers when I went to high school. But nowadays, it's all the rage. Everyone needs to be a Marxist. So it has to be taught and enforced in all the schools and enforced and brought into legislation, which is why DEI, wokeism is infected everywhere. Another post here from Andy Lee. If you had our Special Islamophobia rep, Amira El-Ghabi, being a part of Senator Wu's ACCT Foundation, along with convoy crisis actor Zexi Lee, collect your prize. Formed in 2017 with the blessing of the Chinese embassy, the ACCT has received over $1 million from taxpayers. It led protests against foreign agent registry in 2023. And there is a link here to the Substack. Again, all these links on the show will be in the description. If they don't put up today, they'll be tomorrow. They're all ready to go in. And still looking here, I see Anthony Housefeather is still saying a statement. Statements by members. Oh, yes, but it doesn't end there. Let's move on to the next panel. Are we there yet? Oh, there seems to be a lot of clapping. No, still statement by members. All right, posting here by Ezra Levant. Right, so if you didn't watch this, he just tried to ask a question of one of the ministers, and the minister just sat there quiet, refusing to answer. The audacity. Right? Why do liberals think that they can act this way with Canadian citizens and not give them an answer and just stare at them and blank them and say, move along, ask them a question, and they just like blank you, not even say a word, just usher you out of the way like you're nothing, like you're trash, like you don't count, like you're a second-class citizen, like you're a speck on the bottom of their boot. That's exactly how she treated this journalist. Oh, but that's the point, right? They don't think they're journalists, right? Because they are not. Oh. Sorry, the video was playing there. They don't think they're journalists because they're not part of the qualified Canadian journalism organization. Right? It's because you have to be part of this group in order to be an authorized journalist in Canada. Right? And if you're not part of this group, then they look down upon you. They look down upon you and they don't think you're a real journalist. Even though somebody like Ezra Levant is actually running a media company, has a massive media company, has several employees, and they get more viewership, more hits than CBC overall. But, you know, because they're not this, then they don't get this little CRA sign-in, which means they don't get all those tax credits and additional monies. So that qualified Canadian journalist organizations like CTV or Global or National Post or the Globe and Mail or Toronto Star, then they can, fund the salaries of their members in their organizations up to close to 30 grand a year. Subsidies and extra money, yep. And and of course, that's how you capture the media in Canada. Still state from my members. All right, let's listen to what happened here with Ezra. Ezra's magnificent.
Thank you, Minister, for agreeing to accredit Rebel News. I very much appreciate your dedication to freedom of the press. I have a question about the ostrich farm. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to ask about the lawsuit because I don't want you to talk about anything that are before the courts. But there was a letter, and I noticed in the statement you talk about Canada-U.S. cooperation. I know that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your U.S. counterpart, has written saying he thinks that there's some medical research value in these ostriches because they had avian flu, but then have recovered and are now immune. In fact, he's offered to do the research and even to pay for it. It seems to me that we need allies around Trump's cabinet table. And if you could throw him a bone and say, sure, Secretary Kennedy, you can study these birds, it's sort of no skin off Canada's nose. And don't you think it would be helpful to have an ally in Trump's cabinet when we're doing our trade negotiations?
Prochaine question, merci.
That's my question. Don't you think it would be helpful to have a friend?
Next reporter, merci.
Oh, you're not going to answer, Minister?
Prochaine question, merci.
I don't understand. Did I do something wrong?
Next question, thank you.
Minister, did I miss an answer? I don't get it. Okay.
Look at these arrogant foxtrots. Look at them. This woman, she is the daughter of a former corrupt prime minister of Haiti. She also won Trudeau's former seat in Papineau. Just another corrupt elitist who couldn't even be bothered to look at you. Look at that, eh? Air of superiority. Typical liberal Marxist. They never give you any reasons to like them, and I don't think they care. And are we starting? I think so. No, we are still at statements by members. They should just about be done.
Mr. Speaker, residents in Richmond are deeply concerned about the convention land ruling. This decision raises serious questions about long-standing private property rights in British Columbia. People want to know if their land titles are secure and what this means for their homes and their future. Yet the Liberal government has remained silent. There has been no explanation, no reassurance, and no plan. As a result, Richmond is holding a public information session on October 28th so residents can get answers that the federal government has failed to provide. Property ownership is a foundational Canadian right. Yes. It's not optional. It's a responsibility of the federal government to protect it. Canadians are watching, and they expect this government to stand up for their rights, not stand by in silence.
The honourable member for Mount Royal.
Mr. Speaker, today I want to welcome Jewish community leaders from the Centre for Israel and Jewish Affairs and the Jewish Federations of Canada.
I joined my colleague, the Minister of Government Transformation and member of Quebec City Region, the Canadian.
We were a nation united. The season started, went 73-45. A savage, Bieber, and the every million Canadians can.
Mr. Speaker, women hold nearly abilities and others must keep working and support gender equality.
Minister spends costs us.
Leader of the opposition.
Each and every dollar that this Prime Minister spends costs us. Each dollar is expensive for Canadians. This government and the Justin Trudeau government doubled inflation. Today, Statistics Canada published new numbers according to which inflation is rising. 4 indicators are higher than projected, and grocery prices are going up twice as fast as the target. Will the Prime Minister, in the upcoming budget, decrease his taxes and inflationary spending so that Canadians can lead affordable lives? The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to see that the opposition leader is excited for November 4th. I'm excited too, as are Canadians. Why? Because we will have good news on November 4th, Mr. Speaker. We will present good news to Canadians. We will present an ambitious plan. Last week, I was in Washington, and the Director General of the International Monetary Fund gave Canada and Germany as excellent examples of countries with the ability to make generational investments. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to build a strong, ambitious Canada in which Canadians are happy and proud. Mr. Speaker, we don't work for bankers in Washington. We're here working for single mothers who can't pay their bills, who can't afford groceries. The inflation rate is exploding, and this means that Canadians have to spend 70% more for the Canada Revenue Agency. Today, the Auditor General revealed that 15% of calls to the CRA are answered at some point. But even if you can get someone on the phone, you get the wrong information 83% of the time. Why do Canadians have to pay so much for such poor service? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have even more good news for the opposition leader. He'll be happy to know that on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we have already taken action. We presented a 100-day plan to fix the situation at the Canada Revenue Agency, because on the government side of the House, we know that we have to do better. We know that we have to give Canadians good information. We know we have to be helpful. And we do something else on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, we respect people who work in public service. We respect public servants, and we will always do our best at all times to serve Canadians.
He admits they have to do better. It's not possible for them to do any worse, Mr. Speaker. The reality is today we learned that inflation is again on the march. All 4 measures of inflation are above Bank of Canada's targets. 2 are outside of and above the acceptable range. Food price inflation is rising 2 times the rate that Bank of Canada targets. No wonder we have 2 million people lined up at food banks every single day. This inflation has exploded since this Prime Minister doubled the deficit. Will he reverse his inflationary deficit and taxes in this coming budget?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all know in this side of the House and Canadians, math might not be the cup of tea of the Leader of the Opposition. Neither may be economics, Mr. Speaker. But let me quote one of the authority in the world, which is the Director General of the International Monetary Fund, Mr. Speaker. She said just last week, then we have countries in the G7 that are in a better position. Germany and Canada stand up in that regard, Mr. Speaker. Both Germany and Canada recognize that this is a very testing time and they need to use their fiscal space. In the case of Canada, the Canadian authorities have been very decisive in taking action. Mr. Speaker, we're
the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, his banker friends in Washington may think that they have fiscal space, but the single mothers who can't afford groceries have no space left at all to pay for liberal inflation. This government is forcing them to spend 70% more on the Canadian Revenue Agency. Today, the Auditor General revealed that only 15% of calls get responses on time, and even if someone does pick up the phone, there's an 83% chance they give you the wrong answer. Why does this government force Canadians to pay so much for such terrible service?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these conservatives. Trust me on that, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, they fought against dental care, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, they fought against the National School Food Program, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, they fought against farmer care, Mr. Speaker. At every step of the way, they fought against the programs that would support Canadians in time of need, Mr. Speaker. No one on this side of this House will tell us what to do. We're going to fight for Canadians. We're going to make Canada strong, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Another day, more costly slogans from that Member of Parliament.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition from the top.
Another day and more costly slogans. But now Canadians are learning it was a bait and switch. Today, another terrible tragedy. As they laugh, 1,200 workers at the Ingersoll Cami plant learned that they would lose their jobs after that Prime Minister promised he would negotiate a win and that he would keep their jobs here in Canada. They join with 2,000 workers in Brampton, many more in Oshawa. How does the Prime Minister look in the eyes the very workers that he sold out and betrayed?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
I'll tell you how the Prime Minister will deal with the auto sector. He will look at the auto workers in the eyes and he will say, "We will fight for your jobs." And that's exactly what we're doing. Every single day, we're negotiating back in Washington, but also, this is important to say that I met this morning with the Canadian CEO of GM. I was in conversation with the head of the labor union of Unifor, and I also talked to Doug Ford, and I talked to Vic Fideli. And you know what? We're putting in place a response group. We will make sure that we fight for these jobs. We need to make sure that...
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
She announced just now that she talked to this person, and she talked to that person, and she talked to this other person, and she talked, and she talked, and they talk, and they talk, and nothing gets done, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are tired of talk. They want their job. This government, or this Prime Minister, looked these workers in the eye and said he would negotiate a win, that he would protect auto jobs, that there would be an all-in-Canada supply chain that would keep them working. They even gave $250 million tax dollars to GM for this plant. And now those workers don't know how they're going to pay their bills. How does this government explain the broken promise and betrayal?
The Honourable Minister of Industry.
Fight for these jobs, and we will hold the companies to account.
That's right.
That being said, let me talk to you about important jobs. 150 new jobs in St. Bruno at Alstom, 700 new jobs at AstraZeneca, 500 new jobs at Ferrero in Ontario, K&S Potash, 50 new jobs, Hitachi Energy, 500 new jobs. This government is building a strong Canadian economy.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the University of Quebec in Montreal was wise enough to forbid or block a conference of Imam Farouk, but he will still be in Brossard. That imam, that preacher, he will be able to spread hatred, and he will foment hatred legally in Canada. And why will he be able to do that? Because he legally has the right to do so. Will the government eliminate the religious exemption from the criminal code? The Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we share the Leader of the Bloc Québécois concerns. Hate speech does not belong in Canada. That's why the Minister of Justice is taking action through Bill C-5. We are especially targeting hatred. During the last legislature, we tabled legislation against hatred. We are going to do everything we can to ensure that hatred cannot exist in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The Minister of Justice is not really getting at the core of the problem. The real problem is the religious exemption, which is still in effect. Spreading hatred is illegal in Canada unless it's for religious reasons. So, for instance, if a woman is assaulted in a war zone, for example, by Hamas in 2023 in September, that can be exempted as a religious exemption. Are those liberal values, truly? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I've already said, and I will repeat, that hate speech has no place in Canada. The Minister of Justice has offered to work with the Bloc Québécois on reforms which are before this House. Through Bill C-9, Mr. Speaker, we're ready to work with them to improve the situation and to ensure that there is no hate speech in Canada. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, there's an incredibly easy way to solve the problem. And the government would be able to be proud of what it's doing rather than doing something shameful. They can eliminate the religious exemption from their own bill. I encourage them to vote in favor of our amendment to eliminate the religious exemption and to forbid hatred and incitement to violence in our media and on our streets, even though that may be against multiculturalism. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, Bill C-9 is currently being studied at the Justice Committee. We welcome all committee members to suggest amendments to the bill. We will hear from experts, subject matter experts. We're ready and willing to work with the Bloc Québécois and with all parties in this House to ensure that hate speech is not in Canada.
We all know the Prime Minister doesn't shop for his own groceries, so maybe someone over there should tell him what's going on with food prices. Food inflation has now reached the highest level since 2023. Fruits, vegetables, meat, even Halloween candy. Everything's getting more expensive and rising faster, not slower. The cost of living is soaring because the cost of government is soaring. The Prime Minister is spending more than even Justin Trudeau did, which means higher taxes and higher inflation for everyone who lives in the real world. So does the Prime Minister realize that his out-of-control spending mean real costs for real Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Speaker, time and again we see those Conservatives fight against policies that Canadians not only are benefiting from, but that Canadians are asking that we make permanent. Things like the school food program, Mr. Speaker, which many advocates and indeed families have praised. In fact, in my own riding, I heard just yesterday from a food partner that's working with high schools to make sure that kids get access not just to fresh food, Mr. Speaker, but the ability to learn how to prepare it themselves. These are the kinds of things that are helping Canadian families, and every step of the way, those guys fight against it.
Exactly. The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Speaker, it is that Liberal minister who sat here for 10 years while people lined up at food banks, and that's what she has to say. Runaway Liberal deficits, doubled grocery prices, and now the same people who caused the crisis think that the solution is just to spend more of other people's money. It's not just Liberal deficits driving up food costs. They voted against removing every hidden food tax that they themselves imposed. Packaging taxes, the industrial carbon tax, another 17 cents a litre because of the fuel standard. It's a religion to them. Food prices are soaring, fridges are empty. Why don't they scrap the hidden taxes?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Great job, Mr. Speaker, again, we see that member and indeed the entire Conservative Party pretend that there is a tax on food. Canadians are smarter than that. They know when they go to the grocery store that food is not taxed. And so instead of imaginary problems, we're coming up with real solutions on this side, Mr. Speaker, whether it's for families, whether it's for seniors, whether it's for workers. We're here for Canadians, both in the good times and the bad. And Mr. Speaker, I just add that I hope that this concern is going to translate into support for our budget that will be tabled later on.
The Honourable Member for Newt-Tecumseh-Gwillimbury.
Greeters at Walmart grocery stores are no longer saying hello, they're apologizing. But it's these Liberals who should be apologizing for their inflationary deficits that have driven up food prices. Inflation data out today confirms food prices have once again skyrocketed, up 4% as everyday groceries become even more unaffordable for families. So we just need the number, Mr. Speaker. How much higher do food prices need to go before the Liberals admit their policies are starving Canadians?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Mr. Speaker, our colleague referred to apologies. Perhaps he'd like to lean forward a couple of rows and suggest to his boss, the Leader of the Opposition, that he should apologize to the men and women who serve in Canada's RCMP for attacking their integrity and attacking the work that they do to protect all Canadians. an apology, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Newtecumseg-Gwillimbury.
They're so focused on listening to their own spin, they've tuned out the grumbling sounds of millions of hungry Canadian stomachs. The Prime Minister said he would be judged by the prices people pay at the grocery store. Well, with food prices up another 4%, thanks to his Liberal government's inflationary deficits, Canadians have made up their minds. He's an empty suit making empty promises that have led to too many empty stomachs. How is this acceptable?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We recognize on this side of the House that families need supports in meeting affordability questions. This is why we have supports in place and why time and time again we have stood for the National School Food Program, for early learning and childcare, making it affordable and accessible across the country, dental care, the Canada Child Benefit, and at each and every opportunity the members opposite voted against these supports for families, for children, for Canadians from coast to coast. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, under this Liberal government, everything is costing more, especially food. New food inflation data shows prices in Atlantic Canada are climbing faster than the national average, and in Newfoundland and Labrador, they're under tremendous pressure. Our province already has the highest unemployment rate in the country, yet families are being hit again at the grocery store. Beef up 14%, sugar up 9%, and meat up 6%. Runaway Liberal spending is fueling inflation, and every dollar they waste makes life harder. When will the government stop the reckless spending and start making life affordable for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I welcome this opportunity to share with the member across the way from Newfoundland and Labrador that a single mom in her riding who earns $15,000 a year can now access up to $25,000 because she will automatically get the benefits for her and her children. This is good news, this is affordability, and this is not a slogan.
Bravo! The honourable member for Long Range Mountains.
Mr. Speaker, while they brag, more and more people line up at the food banks in Newfoundland and Labrador.
That's right.
They voted against our motion to reduce food costs. It's not good enough. Sneaky, hidden Liberal food taxes, like the clean food regulations, are driving up food costs. And since March, food prices have risen 48% faster in Canada than in the U.S. This year alone, food banks are expecting 4 million visits. When will the Prime Minister end his inflationary spree and finally make life affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to again remind my colleague of the benefit of the school food program. I have spoken with moms who absolutely are grateful their children now have food in their bellies and are not separated from all the other children that can expect the basic right to have food in the mornings. I also want to remind my colleague of the importance of the dental program, the child benefit, and also $10 a day childcare. This is affordability. It is not loose slogans.
The Honourable Member for Richmond-Arthabasca. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, inflation is still out of control under this Liberal government. The government is spending more, and Canadians are the ones paying the bill. Today, Stats Canada announced that consumer prices rose 2.4% year over year in September in Canada. What's worse, in Quebec, they rose 3.3%. Furthermore, Quebec was one of the provinces where gas prices increased, rising by 2.7%. Liberal deficits are very expensive for Canadians, but even more so for Quebecers. When will this Prime Minister finally get his deficits under control to ensure that Quebec is no longer the inflation champion of Canada? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, our friend across the way previously sat at Quebec's National Assembly, where decisions are made differently. We have chosen to support families, to support childcare and daycare services, to support pharmacare, to support seniors, to support young people. And I think he would have made the same choice at the National Assembly of Quebec, though. So why is he rising to criticize us? Is he going to vote against all of our supports? If so, he should admit it. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine being that disconnected from Quebecers? On Thursday, the federal government announced that it will invest $52 million for Quebec's healthcare system, but not to treat people and patients. No, they're investing $52 million to anglicize our hospitals. Mr. Speaker, what our hospitals really need is money to treat people, not money to make Quebec more English-speaking. English is doing just fine in Quebec, including in hospitals. When will this government stop its crusade to make Quebec more English-speaking? The Honourable Minister of Identity and Canadian Culture. With all due respect to my colleague across the way, Mr. Speaker, he knows full well that our government is the one which has done the most for official languages in Canada through the reform of the Official Languages Act. We have invested $2 billion in official languages, and for the first time, we are going to meet our Francophone immigration outside Quebec targets, and we're even going to triple those over the next 10 years. We're the first government to do so much to take this type of action. We are also helping Francophone communities outside Quebec. What the member claims is totally false. The Honourable Member for La Pointe-de-l'Île. English is far from being under threat in Quebec. It is unacceptable to waste $52 million of our money to make our hospitals more English-speaking, instead of spending that money on treating people. Naturally, the Quebec government has criticized the move. I quote the Quebec government, "Once again, the federal government is encroaching on Quebec's areas of jurisdiction. It should instead take the funds and give Quebec an unconditional transfer to let the government, which is responsible for healthcare, decide how to spend the money." Mr. Speaker, why not transfer the money to Quebec so that it can be put to good use? Good use meaning treating Quebecers. The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, I'm shocked, and I think most Quebecers are shocked too, because our government is investing in essential services. We're investing in language minority communities throughout the country. For instance, we've helped the Georges Dumont Hospital in Moncton. We've helped healthcare centres in the prairies. We are investing, of course, in healthcare in Quebec. Quebecers are shocked by what the member is suggesting. Is the member really suggesting that we should deprive Anglophone Quebecers from receiving healthcare in their first language? Is that what he's suggesting, Mr. Speaker?
For Calgary East. This Liberal Prime Minister's economic record is even worse than Justin Trudeau's. By doubling the deficit, he's making everything more expensive, especially groceries. Today's devastating inflation numbers confirm Liberal deficits are crushing Canadians. Rent up 5%, groceries up 4%. The four core inflation numbers all above the bank's target. This so-called budget experts' math is not mathing. Will these Liberals stop their inflationary deficits that are driving up the cost of living?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know the Conservative Party opposite has a hard time, but here's some facts. 21 straight months in the targeted inflation rate from Bank of Canada. Our economy grew jobs in September. We have the lowest debt in the G7, lowest deficit G7, lowest net debt to GDP in the G7. Mr. Speaker, our economy has had challenges, but it is strong, it is growing. Our Prime Minister was elected to build the strongest economy in the G7. That's exactly what he's going to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary East.
And yet this Prime Minister has built the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. And did these guys learn anything from Justin Trudeau that the more they spend, the worse it gets for Canadians? 10 years of deficit spending has left Canadians with high inflation, and it's only getting worse. And in typical Liberal fashion, this Prime Minister promised to cap government spending, yet he's going to double the deficit. After 10 years of these Liberal deficits, what don't they understand? The more they spend, the more expensive things get for Canadians.
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, again, let's look at facts. Our economy is not shrinking. Our economy grew. It added jobs. Interest rates are down. Inflation is with targeted rates. On November 4th, 4th, we're going to table a budget. We're going to spend less. We're going to invest more in capital projects. We're going to invest in nation-building projects, infrastructure, housing. We are going to build the strongest economy in the G7. We're not going to take any lessons from somebody that's never worked in the economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hamilton East.
Over the past weekend at Halloween events in Stony Creek, the crippling cost of living was the hot topic at my booth. New inflation data confirms all 3 core inflationary measures are above target. Grocery inflation is up 4%, rent inflation is up nearly 5% in the last year. Liberal deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. Will the Liberals get their inflationary deficits under control to make life more affordable for Canadians?
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know where the party opposite's been, but we know where the leader of the opposition's been. He spent the last week peddling dangerous far-right conspiracy theories about law enforcement in our country. He should apologize. While he's been attacking the rule of law, Canada's new government spent the last week announcing a new suite of affordability measures to strengthen the rule of law, crack down on crime, keep Canadians safe. This will be included in our first budget. I urge Conservative MPs to speak up, stand up, call on the leader opposite to apologize. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Speaker, what Canadians care about is the cost of living, and the more these Liberals deficit spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. New inflation data today confirms this. All 3 core inflation targets are above target. Rent is up 5% over the year. Groceries are up 4% over the year. After 10 years of their deficits, the cost of living in this country cannot take anymore. So will the Liberals stay on focus, get their inflationary deficits under control to make life more affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Small Business, Tourism and Gender Equality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians trust that our government has their back. Why? Because we are making life more affordable and we have cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. This is allowing Canadians to put more money back into their pockets. And speaking of food, Mr. Speaker, good news. Our government is making the school food program permanent. This is going to put $800 back into Canadians' pockets to actually feed healthy meals at school. And also 5.5 million low-income Canadians will automatically receive federal benefits through CRA tax filings. This is real tangible benefits for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katiskamik, Témiscouata. Mr. Speaker, last week in my riding, I spoke to families who are struggling to make ends meet. In a country like ours, it shouldn't be like that, yet Quebec is seeing inflation rise to 3.3% because of this inflationary Liberal government. As a result, the price of gas, rent has gone up by 10%, groceries has skyrocketed. Families can't do it anymore. Will the Liberals finally get their inflationary deficits under control and make life more affordable for Canadians and Quebecers? The Honourable Minister for Government Transformation. The answer is yes. The member voted against every support measure that we've put forward over the last year, so he is not credible in his question. If we want to talk about credibility, Mr. Speaker, we know that there are still reasonable Conservatives. Vicious attacks from the leader of the official opposition against the RCMP is unacceptable, against the rule of law is unacceptable. We see it on the radio, we see it on social media, on TV, but no one across the aisle has attacked the leader of the opposition to say that it's unacceptable. Will one of them finally do so?
For Markham, Smithville.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be part of a new government that has championed trade diversification since day one. We've broken down internal trade barriers within Canada, and we've signed new trade agreements with Ecuador and Indonesia. We're moving at a pace and intensity that Canadians expect of us. Can the Minister of International Trade update this House on our government's latest action to expand and grow our trade relationship with the United Kingdom and what it means for Canadians?
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Good news, Mr. Speaker. Today we table legislation to expand the CPTPP trading bloc to welcome our partners from the United Kingdom, a major step forward for Canadian trade. Why the UK, Mr. Speaker? The UK is Canada's third largest trading partner. Last year alone, they represented $28 billion of Canadian exports. That's billions of dollars of Canadian products produced by Canadian workers in communities across Canada, Mr. Speaker. This is yet another step forward in our trade diversification efforts. Thank you.
The honourable member for Oxford.
Mr. Speaker, after the Prime Minister failed to negotiate a win with Trump, Canada's auto industry has been hit yet again. Devastating news from this morning where over 1,200 highly skilled auto workers at the Cami Ingersoll plant are being laid off by GM indefinitely. This adds to the 2,200 job losses in Oshawa and the 3,000 announced in Brampton. The Liberals have sold out our auto workers. So will the Prime Minister finally admit that he's lost control of the wheel and is driving our auto sector off the cliff?
Yeah! Way to go!
The Honourable Minister for Industry.
Colleague comes from the region, and I look forward to working with him to finding solutions. Obviously, we will fight for these jobs. Not only will we do that, but this morning we were already on the phone with the company to be in solution mode. We were with the GM CEO, with the Unifor Labour, and also with Doug Ford and Vic Fideli. Our goal is to bring back a new model to Ingersoll, and we're on it. Thank you.
The honourable member for Oxford.
I've been talking to the auto workers who are losing their jobs now because of their failed policies. An auto worker in Ingersoll called me this morning and says he doesn't know how he will pay for his mortgage. He doesn't know how he will feed his family. There is a real sense of anxiety in our community. The Liberals blew billions in EVs, and now Canadian workers are the ones that are paying the price and their families. So, will the Liberals finally hit the brakes and stop selling out Canadian workers?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague is right in saying that there's real anxiety right there, and I agree, because I've been in contact with workers and I feel it as well. So our goal is to make sure that we are able to bring back jobs to Ingersoll, to work with the company, to work with the government of Ontario, to work with the labour unions. But meanwhile, we'll make sure that we continue to engage with the United States, because at the end of the day, we know that this is because of the unjustified tariff by the President against the auto sector. Thank you.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, this news out of GM today is another devastating blow for auto workers. It comes less than a week after Stellantis announced 3,000 layoffs as they move production from Canada into the U.S. The Prime Minister looked Canadians in the eye and promised that in exchange for their votes, he would prevent auto sector jobs from happening. Well, they're happening. If the government included a Canadian-wide job protection plan in their $15 billion deal to Stellantis, they can simply invoke that clause. The minister who signed the contract should be able to answer this question. Did they include a jobs protection clause in the contract to Stellantis?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, I know that the Conservatives have been wanting to see the contracts that are linked to the Stellantis plant. And you know what? We've said yes. So the opposition on the committee will have access to the contracts. And they will discover that indeed we negotiated well, and indeed Stellantis is on the hook, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, it's been a week, and all we've got from this minister is political theatre. She's bragging about who she gets on the phone. She's bragging about the tough talks she's having. Here's the thing. If they actually included a jobs protection clause in the contract, all they have to do is invoke it. I'm starting to get a terrible feeling. I'm starting to worry that they signed a $15 billion deal with Stellantis and didn't include a guarantee to protect those Canadian jobs. Can the minister tell Canadians very clearly, explicitly, did they include a jobs protection plan for all jobs at Stellantis when they forked over $15 billion?
Mr. Speaker, I know that my colleague is trying to spook Canadians, but I just would like to remind him that the support that was given to the company was linked to the production of batteries, and therefore no money is spent.
Yeah, start from the top, please.
I know my colleague's trying to spook Canadians right now, but I think what is really, really important to remember is that any support from the government was linked to the production of batteries. And in that sense, our support is linked from the moment that the production is happening. The production has not necessarily happened yet. That being said, Mr. Speaker, what we will do is to make sure that we hold Stellantis to account, because obviously jobs are important in the at the Brampton facility, and we'll continue to fight for these jobs.
The honourable member for Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, during the last election, the Prime Minister promised Canadians that he would get a deal with the United States. But since he was elected, tens of thousands of Canadians have lost their jobs, and $54 billion of investment has fled the country. Last week, Stellantis announced its plans to move their Brampton plant to Illinois after the finance minister signed a deal giving them $10 billion taxpayer dollars. Canadian auto workers want to know what job guarantees were in these contracts.
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Mr. Speaker, our colleague has heard very well that the government will make these contracts available to the opposition. So again, he can assert a series of sort of fabricated conspiracy theories. Doesn't make them true. What is true, Mr. Speaker, is that our government is supporting a proud tradition of building vehicles and cars in Canada. Over 100 years of Canadian workers building these cars. Mr. Speaker, we're going to defend those workers, support those businesses, and fight to ensure we get a deal with the United States that's good for Canadian businesses and Canadian workers.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiawenrak. Mr. Speaker, Canadians have known it for a while, but the Auditor General has just confirmed it. The Canada Revenue Agency is a Liberal disaster. It's uncontrollable and out of control. Last June, barely 5% of calls were handled within the expected time frame. But even worse, when you do get through, 4 times out of 5, the information provided was wrong. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister for National Revenue. Are they aware that this affects the most vulnerable among us, people on low revenue, seniors, and those who can't pay for an accountant? The Honourable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, I have a lot of respect for my colleague, and he knows it full well, but Mr. Speaker, he should be overjoyed because we have already acted. We didn't wait for a report to be published by the Auditor General. We've already acted upstream. I enacted a 100-day plan to improve service because we want to offer good services to Canadians, and I'm sure that he will announce it in his riding. We've also tabled in the next budget a way to obtain benefits automatically. That's a great bonus for those who need more, and it will help affordability in our country. I'm sure he's overjoyed right now. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent, Akiawenrak. Well, I'm glad that the minister is happy, but I'd like to remind him that 2 years ago he did the same thing. He claimed, I've met all the leaders of grocery stores and grocery prices will go down. But it's skyrocketed since, and that's the truth of the matter. But back to the CRA, Mr. Speaker. The auditor stated the agency places more importance on adhering to work shift schedules and breaks than on the actual accuracy of information provided to Canadians. What does he have to say about that? The Honourable Minister for Finance. Mr. Speaker, I don't know who is watching QP today, but I'm not sure that the people in riding will be proud of him attacking those working for the CRA. These public servants do exemplary work. What they need, Mr. Speaker, is that we improve processes, that we improve technology. Everyone wants to offer great service to Canadians. And I know that in his case, he knows that CRA workers are working very hard to serve Canadians, and we'll give them the means to do even better.
Member for Calgary Midnapore.
3 things are certain in life: death, taxes, and you will wait on hold when you call the CRA, according to today's Auditor General report. CRA's own service standards were only met 18% of the time, with wait times doubling over the last year. Only 17% of agents could accurately provide basic tax information. Complaints have increased by 145% in the last 3 years. So can the minister explain why Canadians are paying so much, yet receiving so little?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, look, Canadians deserve timely, accurate, and consistent information from the CRA. We accept the Auditor General's report. We've embarked upon a 100-day plan. Service is improving. We've got a long ways to go, but we are working with the leadership of the CRA. We will make it right. Canadians will get the service they deserve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Well, instead of focusing on other people's jobs, that member should start doing his. Almost 10 years to the date, the Liberals signed a $50 million contract for the CRA call system. It is now almost quadrupled to $190 million. And operational costs at the CRA have increased by 70% under these Liberals. While taxpayers wait on hold, Liberal insiders and contractors cash in. So, does the government have a hang-up with value for money? Is this another arrive scam?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the CRA for delivering Canadians great service like the Canada Child Benefit, Disability Tax Credit. Where would Canadians be without the CRA delivering COVID benefits? Mr. Speaker, service levels need to improve. We accept the Auditor General's report. We will get this right. Service levels and access are improving. We have a lot more work to do, but we will deliver for Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Compton-Stanstead. Mr. Speaker, the RCMP's independence is fundamental to its proper functioning. This is a principle that all responsible leaders should respect and not undermine. Last week, the leader of the Conservative Party decided to criticise the RCMP, saying that they covered up scandals and engaged in political manoeuvring, which is irresponsible, and cast aspersions on an institution that protects Canadians. Can the Minister for Public Safety reiterate the importance of the RCMP's independence and remind why it's important to have trust in our institutions? The Honourable Minister.
President.
Mr. Speaker, thank you to my colleague. The Conservative leader's dangerous rhetoric is irresponsible.
The opposition in relation to the RCMP is completely unacceptable, Mr. Speaker. As you know, the RCMP is an independent organization, one that enhances the rule of law in Canada and one that ensures the safety and security of Canadians. Day in, day out, the RCMP officers on the ground work to save and secure this country, and I demand that the Leader of the Opposition retract the statement and apologize to the members of the RCMP.
The Honourable Member for Vaughan. The Honourable Member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, while they continuously try and distract from their irresponsible policy, we on this side of the House stand united. United against Liberal deficits, against Liberal incompetence, and for the Canadian people. For 10 years, the Liberals have promised deficits would lead to investment. Well, Canada had the worst per capita growth in the G7 and a more than 10% drop in investment per worker. That's no surprise to Canadians, though. The same government, we have the same failed Liberal policies. So will they finally stop their inflationary deficit so Canadians can afford to live?
Government House Leader.
My honourable friend would like the distractions to stop. I suggest that he tell his leader to not go on podcasts anymore, to not pay for shawarma with crypto, and to not call into doubt the independence of our institutions like the CBC, the Bank of Canada, and the proud men and women of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Hill South.
Every dollar this Liberal Prime Minister spends is taken out of the pockets of hardworking Canadians through inflationary deficits and higher taxes. Let's not Let's not forget that for 10 years, Liberals claimed runaway deficits would spark investment. The current finance minister, back when he was industry minister, helped double the national debt, promising it would lead to growth. And what did Canadians get? The worst per capita GDP growth in the G7, and investment per worker collapsed by more than 10%. So, will he ensure that his next budget will stop the inflationary deficits so Canadians can afford to live again, or will he instead double down on Trudeau's policies and make Canadians pay for his failures?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, while Halloween is coming up, the only thing scary in here is the misinformation coming from the Conservatives. We're cutting red tape, we're building homes faster, and we've introduced dental care that now more than 2 million seniors have signed up for. We're building an economy that works for everyone, while Conservatives have a record of pushing the retirement age higher. I can't think of anything scarier than that. And while they're voting against support for seniors, we're empowering older Canadians, and we're protecting not only their dignity, but their peace of mind.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, for 10 years, this Liberal government has been taking Canadians for a ride. They hold the record for the largest annual deficit. They hold the record for doubling the accumulated deficit of all governments combined over the past 50 years. The direct impact on Canadians' wallets is that everything costs more. They need to stop saying that they are putting more money in Canadians' pockets. Will the Prime Minister keep his promise that the deficit will not exceed $42 billion, which would give Canadians just a little bit of breathing room? The answer is simple, yes or no. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House. Now, Mr. Speaker, the issue with the Conservatives is that they keep talking about inflationary deficits. However, they never identify what an inflationist spending is. Is it helping industry? Is it helping workers? Is it helping with dental care? Is it helping with pharmacare? Could they perhaps give us an iota of identification of what actually is an inflationary spending?
The Honourable Member for Cardigan.
Mr. Speaker, in the 2024 alone, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre reported that Canadians lost millions of dollars to fraud. There's not one person in this House today who does not know a senior, a newcomer, or a vulnerable person who has been affected by financial abuse and scams. Yesterday, our government announced that it's taken action. Can the Minister of Finance provide an update on how our new government plans to help Canadians by combating fraud, financial abuse, and scams? New member, 5 months.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, finally a good question, Mr. Speaker. My colleague and I were proud yesterday to announce a very important measure to combat fraud and financial abuse. Yes, the Conservative may want to listen to that, and improve financial security for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. In our upcoming budget, we will introduce the first ever national anti-fraud strategy, Mr. Speaker. It will also implement a new financial crime agencies to lead Canada's effort in combating financial crime, Mr. Speaker. And we will also introduce a new code of conduct for prevention of economic abuse. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we understand we need to help our seniors. We need to help the most vulnerable.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury East, Manitoulin-Nickel-Belt.
Mr. Speaker, after years of talk, the Liberals continue to break their promise to get shovels in the ground when it comes to the Ring of Fire. Thousands of jobs and billions of dollars are at stake. Yet the Prime Minister refuses to move this important project along. The Liberals ignored this vital project on their national priority list, a huge slap in the face to Northern Ontario. Will the Liberals stop breaking their promise and get shovels in the ground now so our region can get to work?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the Ring of Fire represents an immense opportunity to develop Canada's critical minerals in partnership with First Nations. We've established a regional assessment working group to advance the Ring of Fire alongside robust consultations with Indigenous rights holders. We're actively working with the province of Ontario to increase regulatory efficiencies, and we look forward to concluding a one project, one review process with the province of Ontario.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Trump is pushing for Stellantis to ship 3,000 jobs from Canada to the United States. And today, GM announced it's closing another plant in Ingersoll. That's another 1,000 jobs, making it clear what we've known from the start, that Trump is set on destroying the Canadian economy. And yet, the Prime Minister continues to flatter Trump, calling him a, in quotes, modern man, in quotes, world-class leader. Mr. Speaker, he's stealing our jobs. When will the Prime Minister finally fight back against this economic extortion and protect jobs and workers in Canada?
L'honorable ministre de l'Industrie.
Mr. Speaker, of course it is not lost on this government that these unjustified tariffs are having real impacts at home and real impacts at the Stellantis plant. That being said, I will of course work with my colleague, work with the NDP, work with Unifor to push back against the decision of the company to make sure ultimately that we hold Stellantis to account. We need to put pressure on. Let's work together. Let's make this happen.
That's it.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians across the country are suffering from punishing high costs of daily essentials like food, housing and utilities. Grocery prices are sky high and rent is completely unaffordable. Yet, today's inflation numbers show the problem is getting worse, with food up 4%, rent up 4.8%, and 9.6% in Quebec. Under Liberals, life keeps getting harder for workers and their families. When will this government take the affordability crisis seriously, admit their policies are not working, and take effective action to help?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for bringing the affordability issue on this floor, Mr. Speaker. We work together. There's a lot we can be proud of what we have achieved together, Mr. Speaker. When you think about dental care, when you think about farmer care, when you think about the National School Food Program, those are all the type of programs, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative call that slogans. When you're on the government side, you call that program because it delivers benefits to Canadians. We're going to continue to work with our colleagues of this House to make sure that we are there for Canadians in times of need, Mr. Speaker.
Alors, ça met fin à la période des questions pour aujourd'hui.
That's all for question period for today. Let's give colleagues a few minutes to quietly exit the chamber.
All right, that's it. No points of order. And no visitors in the gallery to point out. That is the end of question period for today. All right. We will be back tomorrow, 45 minutes prior to question period, with another array of stories that continue to explore how our society continues to break down under liberal kleptocracy. And for our way out, I will be playing a short video that I put together this week instead of our normal outro. Thank you all for coming out. Please remember, give us a like, share, subscribe, follow whatever platform you're on, because we're on Rumble, X, and CommieTube. And thank you all for hanging out. Please leave us a comment. We'll see you next time. Bye.
That is unbelievably cold comfort for the 3,000 auto workers and their families whose jobs have vanished in Donald Trump's America after the Prime Minister's meeting with Donald Trump. They have to think, how am I paying my mortgage? How am I going to put food on the table? And these are the kinds of answers these Liberals give. It's a very simple question. $15 billion went to Stellantis. And in that $15 billion, if you had a clue how to negotiate, you would have included a guarantee of Canadian jobs. We don't need to wait until these contracts are released. This member should know the answer. Is there a job guarantee for Canadian auto workers? Yes or no?
Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker,
We'll be talking about those issues quite a bit in the coming weeks, but last week, the Leader of the Opposition questioned the independence of our legal system, of the police, and the integrity of police officers, the police officers who put their lives on the line to protect us. Today, he has the opportunity to make amends in an honorable way before this House. In the next 30 seconds, the Leader of the Opposition has the opportunity to make amends. Will he do that? House Leader.
A lot of opportunity to talk about the taxes, the imaginary taxes that the Leader of the Opposition comes up with. But last week, the Leader of the Opposition put into question the independence of our judiciary, of the independence of our prosecutors.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is inventing scenarios to distract from the story. The Leader of the Opposition has had 2 opportunities to apologize to the RCMP, our judges, and our legal system. He has refused to do that.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition had 45 minutes to think about whether he wants to apologize to the wonderful men and women who work to defend Canadians every day and that work at the RCMP. He attacked the integrity.
Complaints from U.S. government sources that say that they are no longer comfortable sharing sensitive intelligence on international investigations that are relevant to Canada with their Canadian partners because they have encountered known cases where they warned the RCMP that they believed people attending sensitive meetings from the Canadian side were involved in corruption. And yet, as I was told and reported, those meetings proceeded. So this gave the Americans the message that Canada wasn't taking Washington's concerns of corruption within Canada's most sensitive investigative arm seriously. And I've further been told that senior U.S. drug enforcement investigators are alarmed by what they see as RCMP's casual acceptance of corruption within its ranks. And this speaks directly to the matters we're examining today.
What is striking, Mr. Speaker, is that this member has risen and talked about inflationary spending. Obviously, the member across the way will have to wait for the budget to see the figures and the investments.
Speaker, I know the party opposite may not like it, but let's look at some facts. Strongest credit rating in the world. AAA credit rating from S&P and Moody's. Lowest deficit in... Mr. Speaker, while the Conservative leader continues on auditioning to be opposition leader, we are focused on building the strongest economy in the
colleague for the question, and we know Canadians urgently need more affordable housing, and Build Canada Homes is set to deliver that. We just announced...
Mr. Speaker, of course, what Stellantis announced for the Brampton plant last week was completely unacceptable. And Stellantis has made solemn commitments to this government and to their workers, and they need to honor their commitments. And that's why we will hold them to account. While my colleagues are just right now talking, we already know that in committee we said that we would agree to the production of documents. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, let me be extremely clear. We will fight for these jobs because Canadian auto workers are the best auto workers in the world. Mr. Speaker, when this government negotiates contracts, they're good ones. And Mr. Speaker, let me be extremely clear. The decision by Stellantis to move its production from the Brampton plant is completely unacceptable. And Mr. Speaker, the decision by Stellantis is not only completely unacceptable, but we'll make sure to hold them to account. Mr. Speaker, I know my colleague is very interested in this issue, which is normal, and of course, this is my #1 priority right now. But
Mr. Speaker, we understand that our Conservative colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't like to work with Premier Ford. Mr. Speaker, just because our colleague asserts with great indignation a series of conspiracy theories does not make them true. Mr. Speaker, we understand that our Conservative colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't like to work with Premier Ford.
Minister's broken promises are costing Canadians. The Prime Minister said he would lower grocery costs for Canadians, but in fact, food prices are rising twice as quickly now as they did under Trudeau. And it's because of the Liberal hidden taxes on food. And it's not imaginary. The Liberal government's own analysis said their food packaging tax increased costs on Canadians by $1 billion. Wow. A Deloitte study said it would increase fresh produce costs 34%. Will the Prime Minister scrap his hidden taxes on food, or will he break another promise to Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, good news for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Last week, the Prime Minister announced that we're making the school food program permanent. So I take from the question of the member opposite. That means, Mr. Speaker, that Canadian kids all across the country are getting good quality food at school, saving families about $800 a year at the grocery store. But I hope from the nature of that question, Mr. Speaker, we can count on the party opposite to support this budget. Mr. Speaker, most Canadians know or ought to know that there isn't tax on food, and in fact, these are imaginary taxes. You know, Mr. Speaker, every time there's a chance to stand up for Canadian families, these Conservatives vote against their interests. Whether it's Canadians, Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister announced that we're making the school food program permanent. You know what, Mr. Speaker, when you visit food banks, one of the things they ask is to make the school food program permanent, and we listen, Mr. Speaker.
While the Conservatives continue to suggest these imaginary taxes exist on food,
the opposition is talking about imaginary taxes.
Mr. Speaker, on November 4th, we are going to table the most transformational budget in our country's history. We're going to spend less. We're going to invest more in nation-building projects, in infrastructure, in homes. Mr. Speaker, we are elected on this side to strengthen our economy. We've got a leader who is serious about the economy versus a leader who's never worked in the economy. Mr. Speaker, we were elected to deliver for Canadians. That's exactly what we're going to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian Federation of Teachers has said that it's fantastic news concerning our school food program. That program
for financial institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know where the members opposite have been, but over the last week, we've announced a series of affordability measures, automatic tax filing, school food program. We've got taxes for 22 million Canadians. We've got the GST for first-time home buyers. Interest rates are down. Mr. Speaker, we were elected on this side to build the strongest economy, most resilient economy in the G7, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Thank you.
we're investing in Canadians. We're investing in a future that ensures that Canada is the top of the G7 countries fiscally. The Conservatives keep talking about cuts that they want to make to programs that Canadians rely on. They keep expecting us to make decisions that would take food out of children's mouths, Mr. Speaker, that would ensure that seniors have no old age.
Bringing out the big guns. Canadians know that this government was elected with a strong mandate to build the strongest economy in the G7. And I know that we're on the right track. You know how I know? Because the experts say so. I know the opposition members may not agree, but who said Canada is fiscally sustainable? Former Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page. Who said Canada is attracting the attention of global investors around the world? The CEO of our largest pension plan. Who said diversifying trade and investing in infrastructure will boost productivity? The Bank of Canada Governor, Mr. Speaker.
Canada's economy is